All right, welcome, Veenu Keller. We are live here at Meetings with Masters, where I love to have elevated conversations with masters of spiritual growth and contribution to humanity. And I know that you are someone who has worked hard at your mastery, your self mastery, your love mastery, your relationship mastery, business mastery, finance mastery. I know that you are. I met you through the world of Tony Robbins as a trainer for Tony, and we danced together on Tony's stage, which is like my favorite thing. Especially to be surrounded with and in proximity to amazing, heart-centered, inspiring, motivational people like you who are making an impact in the world as you are. So welcome, Veenu. Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited. I've seen the guests that you've had, and so I am just excited to be in your platform. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I mean, you're just magical in what you're doing. You recently wrote your book called Teaching Your Children They Are Enough. And yes, let me see. Wait, hold it up a little higher. Awesome, beautiful. So tell us who you are and what you do in the world, and then I want to know a little bit about how that started. So let's start with who you are, what you do, and
So who I am today is definitely not who I was probably even yesterday, right? Because we're always
right.
transforming into a better version of ourselves. So who I am is a person who understands parenting. I understand kids, and I have made it my passion and my mission to help shift that generational gap in the way we raise our kids, going from how we were raised with the baggage we've carried, the filters that we parent through, and shifting that generational gap. So when they start to parent their children, it's a different filter. It's a filter of encouragement. It's a filter of love and respect. It's a filter of worth and their self-esteem. And if they focus through that filter, magical things have happened. So I am now on this new mission to get that out to the world, to understand that parenting is not a style, it's a behavior. It's really tuning in on each individual child as an individual, knowing that they all have different needs, they all have different wants. And if we just focus on what they need from us as their parents, as their guide
Yes.
to this life to
Yeah.
become an adult, then we are being the best parent we can for that child.
That is absolutely key. And thank you for that work. We need to start with, elevating that within our kids, which is their own power. We need to start being able to let them see and know their own power by being their guide and not telling them what to do all the time, right? And getting, we often take things personally as parents if we don't like their answer, so we change and try to control the situation. Oh my goodness, this is really so important. And God, please, everyone watching, I invite you, please share this, because what Vinu is talking about tonight and about her journey here and what she is doing in the world is so incredibly important, because if we can start parenting from that place of love, consciousness, and growth for our children, it is going to be a better journey for not just them, for us as well, as a family, as parents, as single parents, as a couple. Let's let our children know who they really are and have that strength. So Vinu, I want to know, well, I want to first know how you came to doing this and why, and then talk a lot more about what you're doing with it and how people can find you and get your assistance.
So one of the things that shock people is when I say that I was suicidal for 21 years, from the time I was 13 years old to the time I was 34 years old. I had a plan to kill myself in 2016. Instead, I went to a a Tony Robbins event in 2007, and that one event changed my life. It made me realize that I have a choice. I have a choice to live, or I have a choice to die. What choice do I want, and what do I want my story to say? And it was the first time I realized that I was living in a story that somebody else wrote for me. It was the people that bullied me that wrote it for me. It was the filter that my mom wasn't there when I needed her. That was part of my story, that I felt like she wrote for me. It was me cutting myself as a mechanism to feel something instead of feeling numb. That was part of the story I wrote. So there was a story I had written, and I lived that story, and I felt that was my story, and that's how my story was going to end. Ironically enough, though, I was a director of a mental health institution, and I worked with people in mental health. I was a mental health professional, and yet nobody knew because I wore this mask. I wore this mask that, oh, I'm happy, I'm great, I'm good. And yet, thank God, in 2007, I rewrote my story. And it, like 3 years ago, I was cleaning out my closet, and like taking out journals and journals. I'm sure you have of them too with Tony's stuff, right? And I looked at a journal I had found, and I was like reading this thing about like this guy I dated. I'm like, what was his name? Is there a name in this? Like, I don't remember this. And then all of a sudden I got to a page where it says, I give myself permission to finally go in 2016. And I was like, wow, that was so surreal, because it was in 2017 I found that journal, I think, or maybe it wasn't even that year. I don't remember because it was a while ago. But my point is, it made it so surreal. Like I had even forgotten I wrote it. Like I had forgotten I wrote it down in a journal. To be honest, I didn't even know I had a journal like that. I don't remember the guy I was writing about. Like I don't remember any of that.
Wow.
And so I was like, holy cow, like, yeah. And I picked 2016 because that was when I was a single mom for many years. And that was when my youngest was going to graduate high school. And so I wrote this in like 2004 or 2005.
Wow.
And I counted out, like, that's how serious I was. I counted out the years to find out when my son was going to graduate, because I had this mentality that I raised them. They're good. They're graduated. I did my job. They don't need me anymore. I'm out. And now they're 26 and 22. And so I have a newfound meaning of, my kids definitely still need me. Probably now more as an adult than they did as a child, And, but that's where this all led me to. And, I don't want to, this is not a please go see Tony Robbins or anything like that, but I will say that I used to say Tony Robbins saved me, but Tony Robbins didn't save me. I saved me. I listened to what he said, and I interpreted it. I gave it a meaning that I needed at the time to clean up my own backyard, to really dive deep in me. I was in no way going to be a coach. I wasn't even thinking that. I didn't go to a UPW and say, oh, I'm going to be a coach tomorrow. I knew this is where my journey was going to start. I had no idea what my passion was. I had no idea how to get out of victim. I had no idea how I was going to change that story. I just knew I had to. And the more I worked on me, and the more people, mentors I found, like Lauren Lahad, who's one of my dearest friends now, but she was my mentor. Like I say, she believed in me when I didn't even believe in me. She saw something in me I didn't even see in me. But it's people like that continue to support me as I grew. And it was a long, long journey, let me tell you. But then I found the gift. The gift is in the pain. The gift is in the story of being a victim. What was I really seeking? What was my mission here in this world? Why did God choose me? Out of 3 attempts of suicide, and one was when I was pregnant. Why? Why did he let me survive? Why did he change my mind? Why did he allow somebody to walk into my life and say, no, you're not going to do this? Why? And that was what I dealt with. I just got chills. And it was because he knew that I had to physically, mentally, and emotionally go through it to help heal it.
Yes, we have to go through it to help heal it, for sure. And then to be able to in turn take that and help others heal. Because
and that's where I started it, and I really started on the bullying. I'm like, oh, it's because I was bullied. So let me, and I was going all over the country, the world, speaking on stages, paid professional speaker on bullying, self-harm, and suicide. And it was beautiful. And I was like in Hawaii, and this girl was like crying at the end of my at the end of my assembly. And I'm like, I see you, I feel you. And I really did. And she says, today was the day. And I said, for what, sweetheart? She goes, today was the day I was going to end my life. But then I heard you speak today. Why that day? Why did God put me that day of her plan? And she said to me, she says, you spoke my story.
Mm.
Everything you said about not feeling like you fit in, not feeling like you're invited to anything, to say kids are cruel, kids make fun of you, no matter who you are, what you try to be, it's never good enough. Like, that's my story. But I see your story now, and now I realize that, I'm a sophomore in high school. I only have a few more years, and then I do get to create my story. It's no longer going to be these people's, pointing to the kids, right? These people's story. It's no longer going to be my parents' story or my grandparents. It's going to be mine. And I said to her, so what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
And we had that moment. And I just keep getting chills because it was so surreal in that moment. And then I realized that, what's going to happen when she goes back to that environment? Who does she have to support her? Who's going to make this sustainable for her? And I realized that I got to get into homes. It starts with the parenting. When my own kid says to me, I'm not coming for Thanksgiving because, you judge me, and I'm like, what do you mean I judge you? He's like, no matter what I've done for you, you're not good enough. I'm like, what? But I believed in you. I had your back. No. I believed in him the way I thought I needed to. I believed in him, and I had his back the way I thought I had to have his back. No one ever asked him, what do you need to know that your mom believes in you? What do you need to know that your mom has your back? So I did it through my filters, not his filters. And that's, Gina, where everything pivoted. I have, created this program where I move in with families for 4 days. I don't stay at a hotel. I stay in their homes, whether it's on their couch. Sometimes they give me their kids' room, which I kind of feel bad, but I get their kids' room. Sometimes I have a guest bedroom, and I live there. I live there for 4 days. And in my program, we're turning it around. And that's why it's called the in-home turnaround.
I love it.
We're making moms feel seen and heard. We're getting kids to communicate with their parents. Kids are telling me things they never told their parents before. I'm teaching them how to give that information to their mom and dad and to receive it without judgment. So I get to see on day 4 that beautiful transformation where these families are just coming together. They're communicating, they're loving, and they have that peaceful, happy home that they so desired for, just by showing them what the blind spots were.
Wow. Veenu, this is amazing. That is so, what was that show? It was like Nanny something. Super Nanny. Yeah, but this is phenomenal because what you're giving and doing and allowing people to understand about themselves, and like you said, see what they don't see, and the kids to be seen and heard and feel true unconditional love at the end of this. I mean, what could be more powerful? Because when we can all come into that place of showing them, our children, unconditional love.
That's what it is.
We may think we are unconditional, and I'm 100% like, I am guilty of like my my knowingness and all thinking I knew, what was right and that I was unconditional. There were so many times where I look back now and I go, wow, I didn't really know what I didn't know. I didn't realize I didn't realize it wasn't unconditional by the way I sounded. But you're right. Like, we parents most of the time look through the filter of what we as parents think is best for the child based on our view.
Right.
Especially in teenage years, we really need to be able to ask them what are their needs, not just, especially all ages, right? What are their needs?
Well, it's just like a relationship. Like, so people say super nanny, and I say, yeah, but no. So super nanny, if you go back, so I say this, like, so my husband is big into football and he likes the Panthers. And many of you all know Panthers definitely don't have a good winning streak. So he's like yelling at the TV, right? So I remember a few years back, he comes upstairs and I'm yelling at the TV and he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, this woman, like, she's enabling this behavior. She's making it all about the kids. It's not about the kids. Like, time out. Consequences are not to hurt a child. A consequence is to teach a child. And are we going to teach our children to go away from pain, or do we want to teach our children to go towards the reward? Like, all she's doing is constantly reassuring what us humans do. We'll do more to stay away from pain than we do to go to pleasure. And I'm like, why do we reinforce that? Why don't we reinforce going towards the pleasure? Because the pleasure feels a lot better than that pain. Right. But I want to teach them the trajectory. And so I'm yelling at the TV. And he says, do you think she can hear you? I'm like, do you think the Panthers can hear you? I mean,
excuse me, honey. Yeah.
So it's really about, we need when a child does something, I'm not saying don't give them consequences, but is the consequence teaching them to make a better choice, or is it hurting them so we keep them from doing it, but then they do it again and we're like, why aren't they getting it? Why aren't they getting it? Because the reward to sneak out and go to the party was worth them getting their phone taken away for a week, because that phone had nothing to do with them going to the party, just so you know.
Right.
But we did that because we're going to hurt them. We're going to hurt them where we can with the phone. And they go through a week without their phone. They get used to it. And then 2 weeks later, they're sneaking out to a party again. Why? Because the reward of what they did outweighed the consequence or the pain that you thought you were creating. It's not about that. It's not about teaching them a lesson. We don't want to teach our kids a lesson. We want to teach them a better choice. So like when a child is talking back and they have that attitude, like, hey, can you let me know when you're walking out the door? I will. Okay. So we can say, don't talk to me that way. That's not okay. Like, I'm your mom. You need to respect me. We've talked about this before. Well, obviously what you talked about is not working because he's still doing it. What you can say is, you know what? Do me a favor. I need you to just take a few minutes. I need you to go to your room. I want you to take a breath, and I want you to write 3 ways you could have said that better to me. Give me 3 ways you could have said that better to me. Guess what? Now I'm teaching them something. 1, I'm making them aware. I'm making them aware of how they're talking to me. 2, I'm not letting them just go and say, didn't we talk about this, as they walk out the door. 3, they're getting an opportunity to be creative, to aid in their own rescue and coming up with different ways they can say that. So the next time you just stack that till finally, the day or 2 later, it's, Mom, can I just text you when I'm out the door because I know you're busy? Yes, sweetheart. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. It's a different approach. It's a more respectable approach. And I just want to back up for a second, because I don't want to let this time fly by without acknowledging what you've been through, because what you went through in wanting to commit suicide on, I think you said 3 attempts, and being depressed and being bullied in your teenage years and all of that, going through that, your own fire that has brought you to this place. What do you think when you think about that? What would have been different for you? Like, do you think, was it your parents? Like, what could they have, what could have been different that, maybe someone out there hearing this can do, even if they're a teenager? So if they're the teenager and they don't know, their parents don't know the tools, but they're hearing this and they're feeling depressed, do you have any thoughts on what they could do, or what you could have done?
Yeah. So it starts with me, right? It starts with my self-worth. It starts with me loving myself. It starts, but again, if you, and I say this all the time, if I say, close your eyes, imagine a rose, what does it feel like? What does it smell like? And you've never, ever, ever seen a rose, you're going to close your eyes for a minute. You're going to open up and be like, okay, so what do you want me to imagine again? Okay, so can you just tell me what that feels like? Because I've never seen that before. And what color do they come in?
Very good point.
Same thing. Love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. Well, if you never have felt that, how do you know?
Right. Beautiful.
We have to be able to guide them. Like you said in the beginning, don't dictate to your kids, guide your kids. It's show them. Don't say, hey, the bathroom's not clean enough. You know how to clean it. Well, why don't you show them what that standard is before you demand it, right? Because at that standard, at 14, 15, that bathroom's pretty clean for them.
Right.
Show them, guide them what the standard is instead of dictate to them, right? This is where that pivot is. And so with these kids, ask them, first of all, ask questions. What do you need to feel love? What does love feel like to you? What would that look like to you? If you knew, like, I'll give you an example. One of the questions, because, I coach a lot of kids too. And so one of the questions I ask them in the beginning is, how do you know your mom loves you? And I don't care if they're 9, I don't care if they're 17. They're going to give me the same answer 98% of the time. Because they're my mom. And I'm like, that's why? Yep. They're my mom. They have to love me. I said, okay. Then I coach them, right? And after 3 months, I'll ask them the same question. So tell me, how do you know your mom loves you? And they'll say, she's present with me. She spends time with me. When I ask her to do something, she gets off her phone and actually looks at me now and tells me when and when she can't. She actually has a date night with me now. She actually asked me what kind of clothes I wanted to buy versus telling me what store we were going to go to. Why my mom loves me is because she's starting to ask me what I want, and she's really hearing me. And I say, so what changed? They say, I changed. I had the courage to start talking to her. And they're like, and you coached her a little bit, but, and I said, no, I mean, you're right. I did coach her, but I guided her to hear you. That's all I did. I guided your mom to hear you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so what a night and day difference, right? From, oh, because they're my mom, they have to this is why they love me. This is why I feel love, right? So guess what? Now that child knows what love means. It means hearing them. It means seeing them. Okay, so what has to happen for you to hear yourself, to see yourself? What are the things in you that light you up?
Yes.
And then we start building on that. And then everything changes. And
Beautiful.
I'm going to tell you, I just want to back up a little bit. The suicide does not come from, oh, I'm not enough, I'm not loved. I used to think that. But you know what it really came down to when I dug really, really deep is I was lonely. I was lonely, not feeling that I belonged to a group that I wanted to belong to. I was lonely in not feeling I had the big circle of friends. I was lonely in not feeling a part of anything. I was lonely because my mom was a single mom doing the best that she could with what she had, working 2 jobs, going to law school. You know, who's my absolute hero now. And thank God I inherited so many of her amazing traits of that fire. That fire I got from my mama. You know, I got it from my mama. And, you know, and so there was a great thing. And I'll tell you, so I have 2 best-selling books on Amazon. One's called Bully Proof, Unleash the Hero Inside Your Kid, and Numb, about my cutting experience. And they're all co-authored. But when my mom read it, I was so afraid, Gina. I was afraid that she was going to read it. And she's like, I'm like, oh my God, she's going to really read the story. The guy never told my mom my story. And I remember she was visiting and she goes, are you going to give me that book or what? And I'm like, oh God, yeah, here it is. And we were driving to Costco and she put her hand on my lap and she's like, I never knew. And she started crying. And she says, I never knew. I'm so, so sorry. How as a mother could I have missed this? And I said to her, thank God you didn't. Because Mom, I'm going to get teary-eyed. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if you do.
Yes. Oh, so true. Oh,
it wasn't my time to be saved. I had to save myself. And if I didn't go through this journey for the last 13 years, I wouldn't be in people's homes. I wouldn't be on this show with you. I wouldn't be writing books like this to teach parents a different way of parenting. Take off the freaking labels. Love their strengths, guide their weaknesses. Don't punish to make them hurt. Give consequences to make them learn.
right.
And it's because my mom didn't know.
Yeah.
Didn't know.
Oh, what it must have felt like right in that moment in the car when she said that. What did that feel like for you?
You know, it's one of the first times I felt so connected to my mom. Like I really felt heard and seen.
And why was that so important to you to feel heard and seen?
It's what we were always looking for from the beginning. You know, sometimes it just takes some of us different ways. But, you know, once a parent shuts you off, and I remember that moment, I was 13 and I went to my mom and I said, kids are bullying me. They're calling me Gandhi because Gandhi just came out. And like kids will be cruel. You know, they'll take anything they can. I was the only Indian there and they were making fun of me and saying, you know, bowing down, Gandhi, Gandhi. The teachers are standing there. The teachers aren't doing anything. So in my mind, the teachers don't care about me. These kids all laugh at me. I go home, I tell my mom, and she says, kids will be kids, Veenu. It'll be fine. So that's four things that built on that belief I wasn't enough.
I wonder in that moment, I just thought as you're saying it, what would a mother, you know, someone like you say in that moment? If you said to if you're looking back at that moment and you are being said that by your child, like, what would you have said?
So now, what I would say now with this being that I am today, I would have looked at my child and I would have held her hand so she knows that I feel her. And I would say to her, what does it feel like to you when they say that? What are you really feeling? What does it mean to you? Does it mean that you are Gandhi? Does it mean that, what does it mean? Because that little Veenu would have said to her mommy, I would have said to my mommy in that moment, it means that they don't like me. It means that they don't want me to be with them. That means that I'm different. It means that, and the teachers just think it's okay if they do that. Like, you know, the meanies, I would call them meanies, right? The meanies get rewarded. And what did I do? That's what she would have told her mommy.
That's beautiful. That's really good for parents to hear out there. Because then she would have felt seen and heard.
That's all they want. And so let me tell you where this pivot happens, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
So, you know, how do I know this shit works? Oh, I said, sorry. How do I know it works? I know it works. Everything I put in here, I know it works because I've done it. So I have 6 kids. I have my 2 that are 26 and 22, and I have a granddaughter for my 26-year-old. She's beautiful. Looks nothing like me. She's almost 3. She's a little spitfire. She's got a little bit of her Mimi in her. And then I have my stepdaughters that are 13, almost 13 and almost 16, who've been in my life for 9 years. And then I have my 8-year-old twins. 8-year-old twins, boy-girl twin. We are typically the Brady Bunch. We have 3 boys, 3 girls. My 2 boys, my husband's 2 girls. And then God said, well, he needs a boy, you need a girl. So let's do this. So we do. My daughter said to me a few weeks ago, and I don't know where she gets the dramatic from, but she comes to me and she says, Mom, I asked this girl at school if she liked me. And I said, tell me the truth. You could tell it to my face. You could tell me the truth if you like me. It's okay if it's a no. And I said, well, what did she say? And she said no. And my daughter ran off and I'm like, wait, Sage, come back here. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well, what happened? And she's like, I looked at her and I'm like, it's okay. I'm glad you told me the truth, but I have people that like me and I have friends. And she ran off again. I'm like, whoa, come back here. And she goes, what? Are you upset about it? You know, are you having an emotion about it? And I'm like, well, no. I'm like, are you? And she goes, no. And then she put her hands up and she goes, I just want her to tell me the truth because she acts one way. And then when I try to play with her, she always tells me no. So I just want her to tell me the truth to my face. I'm like, okay. And then she was off. That's the difference.
Phenomenal.
That's the difference. So I don't have to ask her, how do you feel about yourself? What do you think about yourself? The proof is in the pudding. If you have this openness with your children, they will tell you. Her twin brother, we were on vacation in Myrtle Beach and he came out and he had this attitude. I'm like, what's going on here? And we were in front of people and I'm not parent too. I'm like, oh, especially with what I do. Like, why is my kid acting like this? Right. Yeah. And I'm like, what is happening? And he's like, I needed an emotion and Dad didn't let me have it. And I'm like, tell me, what emotion did you need? He says, I fell and I hurt my knee and it hurt. And Dad said, oh, you're good. Wipe it off. Let's go. And I hurt. I needed to have that hurt emotion and Dad didn't let me have it. And I'm like, I said, what did you do to tell Dad you needed it? He's like, oh, I didn't. I'm like, so what do you need to do next time? Tell Dad I need my emotion. I said, so do you need your emotion now? He's like, no, I'm good now. He's like, I'm going to go play video games with the boys. I'm like, oh, okay. That's all he needed to be seen and heard.
That's it. Instead of being told that he was fine.
He needed to be seen,
which is what we do.
Right. So that brings me to my book. So how do we teach our children that we're enough? It's a free ebook, but you can also get the hard copy on Amazon. It's published. It's just 3 steps, right? 3 things. Don't shame and blame. Be present and teach them how to celebrate. If you don't do those 3 things, and after each chapter, I put reflection questions. So you can really dig deep into your own life of how it shows up. What does it mean not to blame and shame? What does it mean? And there's also a building self-esteem quiz that you can give your kids and yourself.
Awesome.
Because if you want your kids to do better, you got to do better.
Absolutely.
Be curious, not critical.
Yes.
Give them the space, no judgment, and they will give you the rewards of opening up and communicating with you. So you can guide them.
So important. That is really critical. And I mean, what an amazing message. This is so important, Veenu. Everyone, please download her ebook or go and buy it. This is important stuff because it might sound so simple, But these steps are critical to the growth of our children and of humanity, because it allows us, the kids, it allows everyone to live their own truth of who they are, to be able to ask their parents for what they need with grace, with you know, ease and grace, and then just go on. Like your little daughter, she didn't have any hurt feelings. She just needed the truth.
That's
We
all she wanted.
we just want the truth, right? Just truth on and honor and honesty. And then you were able to honor her feelings, and she went off on her own, and your son as well. It's
Exactly.
beautiful.
So I also created this. It's also on Amazon, the best version of me journal and calendar, and I
Oh, wow.
created it for kids. You know, I would say probably like 8 and above. But like one of the best pages in here is quality questions. What's missing in my life? I feel lonely when. I feel pretty when. What I need is. I feel I have no control when. If you can get these answers from your kids, can you imagine how you could support them? So I created this so we can find out what lights them up. You know, what are their magic moments? I have a mood meter on here. Their daily affirmations, like what do they need to know about themselves that they really believe that they need to repeat to themselves each and every day? Their I am statements, you know. And I did a whole video on how to do this because I got kind of hasty and published it, and people are like, well, how do you use it? I'm like, oh, good idea. So I went back. There's a link to use it, but it's also on Amazon. You know, it's a colored journal and calendar for this year for your kids. But it's also a great thing to really prompt them in digging deep into really what's going on.
Beautiful. Really important and needed. Wow, Veenu, thank you so much. Like, I don't want to let you go, but I don't want to,
But
like,
it's time.
I think it's time because we got the most important things. And is there anything else you want to share or want people to know?
You know, just remember, you know, we all have a formula on what it feels like to be loved and appreciated. Take time with your spouse and ask them, you know, what do you need to know that you're my hero, that I love you and appreciate you? What do you need from me? And if they don't know, then you're obviously don't know either, and vice versa. Ask yourself, get off this and ask yourself, what do I need? What's my formula to feel loved and appreciated, to know that I'm needed and wanted, to know that I'm enough? What's my formula? And if you don't know, it's a good place to start. And if you don't know, your kids probably don't know either.
Right, right. It goes back to that, like telling your kid to imagine a red flower, but they've never seen a rose or whatever, you know, which or
Right.
something they've never seen before. So that is really important. We have to do the work as parents first, so that we can model it for our children, which is critical because most of the time we model behavior that we think is best, but we might not be doing it.
Correct.
So
So I have a new program that I just created online. It's going to be launched in October on parenting, cutting through the BS of parenting. And it's a 6-week program that people can get into. But I teach all of this, how to let go of that baggage, you know, how to communicate better, looking at your disc style and your kids' disc style, you know, because it's really about creating boundaries, understanding communication, and showing up. How you show up is how they're going to show up.
perfect. That's very true. It's very, very true. And it's really important. So people can find that on where? On your website?
Yeah, it'll be on my website shortly. So just,
Okay.
you know, and I'm sure, I mean, you're an amazing friend. I'm sure like as soon as it goes out, people will blast it everywhere too. So we'll be able to find it. But, you know, social media, you can find me anywhere at Veenu Inspires. I do free discovery calls. So if something resonated with you and you want to know a little bit more and you want to dig deeper, get on a call with me. It's 30 minutes. I mean, the worst case scenario, you're going to get some great strategies that's just focused on you and your family.
That is fantastic, Veenu. Very important. And, you know, it's funny when, I don't know if you know, I do this singles show for singles. And one of the things that I do is really work on elevating coaching singles to elevate their love frequency, meaning love for themselves, right? Love for themselves and letting go of old habits and old behaviors so that they can allow love in, so that they can then in turn meet the right person, fall in love, have love, find them, fall in love, and then be that loving parent to their potential family, which is what the world needs. So it starts with us. It starts with self first, and it starts absolutely 100%. Having mentors and coaches is key. And so thank you. Yes, key. I know I wouldn't be here without, you wouldn't be here without, and it's really important that you have somebody who's doing that kind of work, doing the work, and has done
And
the work.
themselves, right? Like, I mean, I met a parent coach who's 20 and doesn't have any kids. So for me, if I was coming to you that, hey, my child got arrested, I don't know how to handle that. Like, what are you going to say to me?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, choose a mentor, choose a coach. And Tony says this all the time. Choose somebody that has done the work and is where
Yeah.
you want them to be, because you know their guidance is authentic.
Right. Absolutely. That's 100% important. I agree with you. And purposefully surround yourself with people that have done the work and are, are ahead of you, 5 steps ahead, whatever it is, that have done the work and been there. Make that absolute, what does Tony call it? Well, he calls it proximity is power. What does he say about the 5? There's like his quote about the 5 people. Is that Tony?
Oh, the 5 people you surround yourself with is like who you become, right? Who you surround yourself with is who you become.
Yes. Yep. So find the people that inspire you. Follow them. Go find Veenu. She will help you and your family become more loving, more respectful, hear each other. Allow your kids to have her come stay with you, for goodness sakes. That is the coolest. What's the name of that program again?
In-home turnaround.
In-home turnaround. I love it. That is huge. Immersion is huge. Having somebody immersed in the change. So thank you, Veenu. I love you. Thank you, everyone who's watching. I appreciate you. And we look forward to one of us, to hearing from you. Whoever's watching, definitely go find Veenu. Talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye, Veenu. Love you.